Hey everyone, it's Adam, back with the PSPi 6. Since my last video, my focus has been almost entirely on finishing a new set of prototypes, which I just placed the order for a few days ago. I don't have them in my hands yet, so I'm taking this time to cover some things that I missed in the last video. In this one, I'm going to show you how to order the most recent prototype from the manufacturer, and then I'll give a quick preview of the board installation process, and while I'm doing that, I'll answer some of the questions from the last video. Alright, let's dive in. I'll start by showing how to order my board. And there are two ways to do this. The first is to wait until the board is finished and just order one from me. I plan to offer a couple different variations depending on whether people want to do some soldering and firmware flashing themselves. I added a form on my website where you can subscribe to be notified when it's available, and I'll work out the details over the next few weeks. The other ordering options are provided by the PCB manufacturer that I use. I'll walk you through these options now. Just be aware they all require some hands-on work after assembly, and you'll still need to solder a few components and flash firmware. So what you see here is the Easy EDA editor that I used to create this board. And you can find this page linked below and on the GitHub page for this project. If you want to order just this PCB without components, then click on this fabrication tab and download the Gerber file. If you also want to order the components and have the manufacturer place them, then you'll also need the bill of materials and the pick and place files. And these three files are also stored on the project's GitHub page. And now that those files are downloaded, you can go to this company's manufacturing site, JLCPCB. And I'm thrilled to say they sponsored this video. So a big thanks to them for helping fund my prototypes. Their site is the first link in the description below. And once you get there, you click on Order Now, click the big Add Gerber File button, select the Gerber you downloaded, and a preview of the board will appear. From there, you choose the quantity and make sure you set the PCB thickness to 0.8 millimeters. So it'll fit inside of the PSP case. If you just want the blank PCBs, then this is all you do, and you click Save to Cart and then complete the order. If you want full assembly though, there's a few more steps. Down at the bottom of the page, you'll find the Assembly button. Tap this and then you can choose either the Economic service to have them place components on just one side, or you can choose Standard and have them place both sides. And from there, you'll go through a few pages to verify the PCB, and then it'll ask you to add the other two files that you downloaded. The next page will list all the components and show whether the company has them stocked. And as of this moment, they're all available, but I expect that to change over time. Then it'll visualize the component placement and allow you to make corrections as needed. You'll notice that the power and USB connectors and the joystick contact pads aren't present, and that's because you have to order them separately and solder them manually. And I have links to those too on the GitHub page. Like I said in the last video, this board is not yet ready to ship. I just now ordered a new prototype, so be aware that I made hundreds of changes to this board since the last one, and there could be mistakes that I have to correct manually when I get them. And now let's move on to assembly. I'm just doing a quick preview of the process, and I'll make a more detailed guide once the board design is done. So let's start by looking at the shell, and this one's already disassembled. So this board is compatible with only the original PSP 1000 models, and that can be the 1001, 1002, etc., as long as it isn't the E1000. I've tried a bunch of different 1000 series cases, and so far they all work. It does not work with the 2000 and 3000 models, and I don't have any plans to make a board for those different ones. I also don't have any plans to make a board for the PS Vita. Alright, let's build this. Assembly starts with the headphone board, which will either be included with the kit or it'll be an optional addition on my website. It pops into basically the same position as the original PSP one and gets held down with some screws. This one you're looking at is the very first headphone prototype for this, which was carried over from PSPi 5, and the connection is made using these 6 wires. The new prototype gets rid of these wires and uses spring pins to make contact, and if testing goes well, that's what I'll do on the final board. And now the PSPi board itself goes into the case. So this board requires absolutely no case modification. I understand that people might want to swap this board into a PSP that still works, so I made this mod to be entirely reversible in case you decide to go back to stock. And that's one of the reasons this uses mini USB instead of USB-C. Once the board is in place, you'll hook up all the wires, including the barrel jack, the 24-pin FPC cable that's on the right, and the speakers. It has screw holes that match the ones on the original PSP board, and I'm putting one screw in to hold the board in place. Now the D-pad goes on, and the 10-pin FPC goes into the connector on the left. And now the LCD bracket gets installed, and some more screws go into place, but don't get fully tightened just yet. Before tightening them down, you want to check alignment in one area of the board. The joystick pads protrude a bit and need to be fairly well centered in this area to keep them from contacting the metal bracket. Once that's checked, the screws can be tightened down. Also, while we're on the subject of joysticks, this board is able to connect to two of them. There are two pads in the middle of the board labeled RX and RY, and those are for the second joystick. As for where a second joystick would go, I'm not sure, but this is one of the most requested features and it cost me nothing to add other than a little bit of time writing the code for it, so it's something that I added. And now it's time to install the LCD. And we start by inserting the cable into this 40-pin FPC connector. The LCD is aftermarket, and I have a link on the project's GitHub page if you want to check it out. I tried using the original LCD a few years ago when the Pi Zero first came out, but I had some issues getting the timings to work reliably. I could probably get it to work on the board today, but at this point, I think it would be a step backward because this new LCD looks so good, and it isn't very expensive, and this new one has about 3 times the number of pixels. And once the LCD is installed, it's time to install the cover with the original screws. And now it's time to install the Raspberry Pi. If you're using the Pi Zero or Pi Zero 2, then it plugs directly into the connector on the board, and there's 2 posts that keep it in place. The USB connection isn't available on this 40-pin header, so if you stop here, then you'll have to plug USB devices into the micro USB port directly on the Pi if you want to use like a keyboard or a flash drive. It's pretty easy to access, so this isn't really a big issue, but it is also possible to bring USB data through the mini USB connector. To do that, you just have to solder 2 wires from these 2 pads on the Pi to these 2 pads on my board. I was trying to find a way to do this without soldering, but it would take multiple different connectors to adapt it, and I decided that soldering the wires was the best way to go for now. If you're using the compute module and carrier board, things are a little different. The CM4 goes into the carrier first, and then the carrier plugs into that 40-pin header. If you've used the CM4, you probably know these things produce a ton of heat, so I'm also putting this 2mm thermal pad to dump that heat into my board. I've done lots of stress tests, and this thing is able to keep the CM4 at or below 60 Celsius, well under the point where it starts to throttle. I'm using the PSP's built-in Wi-Fi antenna, so this is when I connect it to the compute module, and now the compute module gets mounted. The carrier mounts to those same 2 posts, but unlike the Pi Zero, the USB data pins are actually routed through this 40-pin header on this one. And finally, this does not use the stock PSP battery. Instead, I'm using a 2 amp hour Turnigy battery that lasts somewhere around 4 to 8 hours on the Pi Zero and 2 to 4 hours when using the compute module, depending on what you're doing and how bright the screen is. I included this 2mm JST connector on the board, and it's compatible with lots of different LiPo batteries, but just make sure that your pinout isn't backward. The battery charges using either the barrel jack or the mini USB connector, but the mini USB connector typically gives a better charge rate. You can also go crazy and use both of them at the same time if you want. Just make sure the power is coming from the same source. This mini USB connector also powers external devices such as USB flash drives and keyboards. So that covers the assembly, and you may be asking what's next. The new boards are on the way to me, and will probably be here in a week or 2. And once I get them, I have a lot of work to do, testing, modifying, and shipping some of them out for reviews and stress tests. A few of those boards don't have a destination quite yet, so let me know below what you think I should do with the extras. Alright, I think I covered most of the comments and questions. There were also quite a few comments about the usefulness of a mod like this, since a working PSP can emulate games pretty well. Some of those comments were constructive, and others were not. I'll just say that people have different passions, and mine is pushing my own limits and trying to learn more, and this project is perfect for that, so I'm going to obsess over it until it's perfect. Also, this project isn't necessarily about gaming, at least for me, and I probably spend more time coding on this than I do gaming. I even added a real-time clock to this latest prototype, because I plan to use this as a portable Linux system, and I expect some other people will do the same. I do recognize that gaming is what brings people into this project though. So that's it for now. You can follow along with the progress on Discord if you want constant updates, or you can follow here on YouTube or on Twitter if you just want occasional ones. I'm working on a few other things while I wait for the orders to arrive, and my next video may be something entirely different, possibly a teardown of the Big Tree Tech Pad 7, so stay tuned for that. And finally, this is an open source project, so if any of you want to contribute, I definitely welcome it. I'm nearing the end of the hardware design process, but there will soon be a ton more coding to do, so if anyone wants to get involved in that, I welcome it. and I may release some videos explaining exactly what the code does and where I could use help, but that'll be a little further down the road. You can also help by spreading the word and sharing this project with others. And if anyone wants to help out monetarily, that's also greatly appreciated, and that's part of the reason I was able to order prototypes so soon. But again, I'm doing this because I love it. I have links in the description if you want to check them out. Alright, thanks for watching.